And let us dive right in with President Trump, the bachelor in paradise of American presidents. And unfortunately, we have to start with the fact that on Thursday, the president sent a series of disgusting tweets about Morning Joe's Mika Brzezinski, tweets that were absolutely indefensible. And yet, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the least amusing cast member in a direct-to-DVD faith-based romantic comedy, gave it her very best shot.
I think that the president has been attacked mercilessly on personal accounts by members on that program. And I think he's been very clear that when he gets attacked, he's going to hit back.
You know what? She's kind of right about that. Trump is basically a walrus wearing a T-shirt that says, "I have diarrhea." He's pretty open about how grossly shitty he can be. So we can't really be shocked when he suddenly is. But that news actually overshadowed a development regarding the president's travel ban, which the administration has long maintained is not a ban, despite what you may have heard from biased mainstream media outlets like the President of the United States and The Dictionary. You may remember Trump's original executive order halted all refugee admissions and temporarily barred people from 7 Muslim-majority countries. It was met with widespread protests and dozens of lawsuits resulting in courts placing both the ban and Trump's subsequent revision of that ban on hold. And this week, the Supreme Court got to weigh in.
The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled to partially reinstate the president's highly controversial travel ban before hearing arguments on the case in October.
Yes, at first the ban was banned, but now the court has partially banned the ban, instituting a partial ban pending the possibility of a future partial ban. Now, the court did impose some restrictions, saying it couldn't apply to anyone with a credible claim of a bona fide relationship with a person or entity in the United States. So the natural question there is, what constitutes a bona fide relationship? And the Trump administration took a swing at answering that.
The State Department has narrowly defined that as a parent or child, including in-laws, a sibling, or a spouse. The guidelines for who is considered close family does not include grandparents, aunts or uncles, nieces or nephews, cousins, and brothers or sisters-in-law.
Whoa. Grandparents aren't close family? Good luck telling them that. Because that would require calling them, which would mean a 12 or 13-minute conversation at minimum, a conversation that would inevitably involve being asked whether you remember Jerry Flaxman. You know, Jerry Flaxman, who used to live down the street. Jerry Flaxman. You remember him. He had the daughter with the internet business, and she's gay now. Flaxman. What was her name? Jamie? Either Jamie or Amanda. Right. Samantha Flaxman. Anyway, her father is Jerry Flaxman, and, well, he's dead now. And look, while the definition of the ban is ridiculous, the impacts of it are very real, particularly for refugees, since the administration has decided that being assisted by a refugee resettlement agency does not constitute a bona fide relationship, which means thousands of desperate people who've gone through exhaustive vetting and have been approved to come here have now been left in the lurch, which is absolutely shameful. And yet, for some, it's actually no big deal. An attitude best exemplified by human lacrosse stick Tucker Carlson, who asked, #Tucker, why does America benefit from having tons of people from failing countries come here? A question that made the Statue of Liberty give up and drown herself in the Hudson River. And if I may just point out, Tux, just because a nation is failing doesn't mean it can't produce some amazing people, just as, and I think we all know who Exhibit A for this is, a successful nation can produce some truly failed human beings. #Tucker. And look, this ban is cruel, It's unnecessary and it undermines our standing in the world. So you would think the president would at least be justifying its existence. Instead, he keeps derailing the conversation with his barrage of bullshit. And there is simply no better example of this than the fact that just this morning, ABC's This Week had a Homeland Security advisor on to discuss the ban, but they never got around to it because they had to address yet another unhinged tweet. And just watch the guy's face as he realizes what he's about to have to talk about.
I want to get to security questions and security concerns, but we've just had the president tweet a GIF that I want you to take a look at. You can see it right there. Obviously, President Trump has taken some video and put a CNN Mike logo on who he's beating up.
You know, at this point, I have no choice but to admit that Trump was right. There is at least one grandparent who poses a grave and immediate threat to America. Unfortunately, it's the grandparent currently in fucking charge of it. And now, this.
And now, CBS 2 meteorologist John Elliott engages in a bit too much self-deprecation.
I have been cast as the wacky redhead for years. I'm just kind of stuck. Ah, yes, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. That was the working title of my autobiography for years, and then he had great success with it. Okay, I'll get in trouble here. I did not like Homecoming Dance. I had to beg Janet Asseltine to go with me, and then Sarah Crowder, she couldn't get a dress the second year. When the package is this boring, no one cares what's inside. When they tested me for TV the first time, they said I was stern, unapproachable, and had no future in the business. Ha! Gravity will get you every time. Take it from me, the leprechaun. You know what I like to do? In the elevator. Total strangers. What are they going to do? They can't leave. So, yeah, have some fun and just say hi to folks. My wife does not like my cargo shorts.
Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns local news. It's mostly known for informative and hard-hitting segments like this one.
Police say one of the masked suspects, armed with a handgun, got out of his car, walked up to the victim's window, pointed the gun right at her face, and told her he wanted her purse, her money, and her cell phone.
Holy shit! You have got to hand it to him. That is a great way to make people pay attention to a story they may not be interested in. And with that in mind, our main story tonight concerns the potential problems in corporate consolidation of local news. Don't you dare change the channel! Now, national cable news gets a lot of attention with their big budgets and their fancy graphics packages. Meanwhile, local news often has to do a lot more with a lot less.
The black bear was roaming through Tina Marison's backyard. Tina was too stunned to get a picture, but this is what the bear probably looked like, except real. This recreation identifies how witnesses say the bear escaped into the woods.
Noah, whoever is hiding behind that tiny bear cutout deserves a Pulitzer. Oh, sure, he could have stood up straight and just walked the bear across the garden. It would have been exactly as convincing, but he didn't do that. He hunched down because he cares. That man is a journalist. And look, it's easy to make fun. It's easy for me to make fun, but local news fills an important role, finding stories that the national news is missing. This show uses local news all the time. Our civil forfeiture piece used outstanding reporting from Tennessee's News Channel 5. And our piece on problems with 911 used great work from Atlanta's 11 Alive. In fact, a Pew study last year found that local news is trusted more than national news. People absolutely love it. So, yes, when you watch local news, you may see something silly, but you also may see something great. And there's actually a third option, because in some parts of the country, you might see this.
I've got a message for certain students. Listen up closely, Snowflake. Yes, I'm talking to you. You, the social justice warrior who whines for trigger warnings and safe spaces. Not grown up enough to deal with the facts? Then hunker down in your room and Snapchat the day away with other social justice warriors. College isn't a babysitting service. It's time to grow up, Snowflake.
Now, that man is Mark Hyman, with one in what I presume is a series featuring titles like Wake Up, Libtard, Cut Much, You Little Beta Baby, and Knock Knock, Sheeple, It's Me, Truth. With Mark Hyman. Hyman is a commentator and former executive at Sinclair Broadcast Group, and Sinclair may be the most influential media company that you've never heard of. Not only are they the largest owner of local TV stations in the country, they could soon get even bigger.
Sinclair will pay about $4 billion for Tribune Media and its 42 local stations. The combined companies will create the largest single group of television stations in the nation.
Wow. It is a little disconcerting to learn that something you've only just heard of is throwing around $4 billion. It's like finding out that ExxonMobil just got bought, and it was by the little twerp who plays the new Spider-Man. What? How's that possible? How does Spider-Twerp have the resources to do that? I only just found out he existed. Now, this acquisition still needs regulatory approval, but it is widely assumed that that will happen, at which point Sinclair's reach could expand dramatically. We did some math, and we found out that when you combine the most watched nightly newscasts on Sinclair and Tribune stations in some of their largest markets, you get an average total viewership of 2.2 million households, and that is a lot. It's more than any current primetime show on Fox News, including 5 Idiots Have the Most Intolerable Dinner Party Ever, and that guy from college everyone hated has a talk show now with Tucker Carlson. And the Fox News parallels don't stop there, because Sinclair's content tilts noticeably conservative. Remember that snowflake guy? Sinclair produces those segments and sends them to their affiliates, and that in itself is already unusual. As best we can tell, no other major owner of TV stations distributes its own commentary segments to run during local news, and Hyman's opinions hew hard right.
We are threatened by a nasty cancer epidemic. It's a danger to our nation. It is political correctness and multiculturalism. Words that were once acceptable in polite conversation are no longer. Handicapped and retarded are now off limits. There is one step that's proven to dramatically reduce domestic violence: marriage. I am now a proud Washington Redskins fan. And the opinion that only black people can legitimately have an afro, someone should tell that to American folk singer Art Garfunkel.
What are you talking about? As I believe Paul Simon once said, there's no need to involve Art Garfunkel in any of this. And the thing is, Hyman is not Sinclair's only conservative voice. Just recently, they hired a man named Boris Epstein, a former Trump advisor who you may remember from multiple TV appearances last year, where he made wild claims like this one.
Barack Obama may have won in 2008 North Carolina due to illegal voting.
Oh
Go ahead, Jake, sorry.
Boris, where are you getting that from? Barack Obama won in North Carolina because of voter fraud?
5% of voting in North Carolina may have been by people who are non-citizens, who should not have been voting, and swung North Carolina to Mr. Obama.
Now, obviously, that is nothing even resembling a fact. The claim he's making received a pants on fire from PolitiFact. And even if it were true, which again, it isn't, Obama still would have beat McCain by 162 electoral votes. Which raises the question, do Trump surrogates even know why they are lying? Or are they driven by some vague instinct, like when a cat sits inside a box? Why are you doing that? I have no idea. There's just something inside me that tells me I should. And yet, Epstein is now Sinclair's chief political analyst and has a regular segment called Bottom Line with Boris. Let me show you a recent one concerning a retracted story on CNN.
The bottom line is this. CNN, along with other cable news networks, is struggling to stick to the facts and to be impartial in covering politics in general and this president specifically.
Oh, come on. That could not be more pot calling the kettle black if he said, the bottom line is, CNN is a rejected extra from The Sopranos in a JCPenney's tie, whose voice sounds like Sylvester Stallone with a mouthful of bees. But Sinclair doesn't just lean right with its commentators. Even its ad breaks sometimes put a thumb on the scale. In 2010, Sinclair's Pittsburgh affiliate pulled a 30-second Democratic ad off the air after they received a complaint and found that some claims in the ad were unsubstantiated. And look, that's a good thing. It is good that they were willing to take a stand to ensure nothing inaccurate made its way on air. Although, just a few months later, that exact same station and multiple other Sinclair outlets aired a 25-minute attack ad on Democrats featuring assertions like this.
During his presidential election, he wound up with a record-shattering $750 million in his campaign. To this day, he refuses to report from whence it came. One reason might be that some of it originated from the terrorist group Hamas.
Oh, my God! Look, if you are going to make up scary donors to the Obama campaign, why stop with Hamas? Just keep going. He won't say where the money came from. One reason may be that it originated with this gang of coyotes that has made billions selling human babies to other hungrier coyotes. And look, if the opinions were confined just to the commentary or to the ad breaks, that would be one thing. But Sinclair can sometimes dictate the content of your local newscast as well. And in contrast to Fox News, a clearly conservative outlet where you basically know what you're getting, with Sinclair, they are injecting Fox-worthy content into the mouths of your local news anchors. The two people who you know and who you trust and whose on-screen chemistry can usually best be described as two people. And the thing is, you may not realise it's happening, because Sinclair and its digital news subsidiary Circa not only produce and send packages to their stations, they even write scripts that local anchors can use to introduce the pieces. For example, just this Tuesday night, anchors at Sinclair stations all over the country introduced a story about Michael Flynn like this.
Did the FBI have a personal vendetta in pursuing the Russia investigation of President Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn?
Did the FBI have a personal vendetta in pursuing the Russia investigation of President Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn?
Did the FBI have a personal vendetta
in pursuing the Russia investigation of President Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn?
Did the FBI have a personal vendetta in pursuing the investigation?
It could very well be true.
Yeah, but you could say it could very well be true about anything. Are all peanut M&Ms just snake eggs painted different colours? Do foxes walk on their hind legs when no one is looking? Is there really only one Olsen twin who's moving back and forth at superhuman speed to trick the human eye into seeing two of them? All of those things could very well be true, and aside from that one about the Olsen twins, none of them are. Now the story they were teasing was that Michael Flynn had apparently spoken up on behalf of a former FBI agent in a gender discrimination suit against the agency. But it is a huge stretch to get from there to an agency-wide conspiracy to bring him down. The problem is, there is real power in hearing your trusted local newscasters using FBI and personal vendetta in a sentence. If those same newscasters somehow use the words Daniel Stern and explosive ejaculation in the same sentence, you could never watch Home Alone the same way again. And Sinclair's content can often not be optional. They regularly send out what are called must-runs, segments that station managers are directed to work into their broadcasts. Both Boris Epstein and Mark Hyman segments are must-runs, and so are some news segments. In fact, let me give you a taste of a must-run story that ran just a month before last year's election.
How can Americans, especially blacks and Latinos in America, support Hillary Clinton?
It's a surprising message coming from a black pastor. But evangelical Bishop Aubrey Shines is spreading a message of why he believes Hillary Clinton's Democratic Party isn't good for black Americans.
Party that gave this country slavery, the KKK, Jim Crow laws.
Whoa, hold on. Just hold on a second there, because first, Democrats gave this country slavery? It's a little more complicated than that. Sure, someone gave me this haircut, but I'm accountable for being comfortable with it, liking it, and keeping it around for a morally repugnant amount of time. Look, and you can maybe see why that could be news in Florida. Tampa pastor makes crazy video. But that piece ran in Columbus, El Paso, Omaha, Syracuse, Seattle, Green Bay, Tulsa, and stations all over the country. And to be fair, Sinclair didn't let all that pastor's assertions go by completely unchecked. They did have the brief appearance of balance by bringing in this political scientist to fact-check the video, but he was given far less screen time than the pastor, and the voiceover undercut him at every turn.
Bullock says that Shines cherry-picked his history.
But if you have the whole context of history and where these the things are mentioned, where they actually miss pieces, then you would not be persuaded at all.
So about that history, when it comes to the KKK, historians generally agree it was created in post-Civil War Reconstruction by Democrats, and later, Southern Democrats were behind the Jim Crow laws.
Yes, that was the party of the South. And as I mentioned, over time, those parties have actually shifted in terms of what their membership base is.
I absolutely love his frustration as he tries to explain that now is not 100 years ago. You almost expect him to say, I'll prove it. Neither of us are wearing bowler hats and that woman over there has a job. All of which supports my theory that, as I've mentioned, now is not 100 years ago. And here's the thing. The must-runs are not just individual pieces. They are also recurring features, like poll questions, which can range from benign to pretty leading.
What did you think of today's Comey testimony? Do you think it was all about substance or theater?
Do you think enough is being done to battle street gangs in the U.S.? Do you trust information from unnamed sources in the Washington Post stories?
Why are cable news channels airing so much coverage of the Trump-Russia story? So here are the options. It's bias against the president, for higher ratings, or it's a really important story.
Okay. There is a clear slant to those questions and answers. I can't wait for the inevitable poll. How would you describe the way Donald Trump looks in athletic wear? A, Adonis-like. B, Herculean. C, striking for a man of his age. Or D, not my thing, but I'd still hit it. But perhaps the most troubling thing of all is that Sinclair has a daily must-run segment called the Terrorism Alert Desk. That is right. They report on terrorism every single day, whether there is something major to report on or not, which means that sometimes the updates contain things like this.
The company in charge of security for the Wimbledon tennis tournament says the ringleader of the London bridge attack did apply for a job. Now, he was not interviewed and no interview was scheduled. He just filled out an online application. An ISIS flag was found hanging in a neighborhood in New Hampshire. It was taken down and police are looking into who put it there. From the Terrorism Alert Desk in Washington, I'm Lindsay Mastis.
In other alerts, my grandma heard a loud noise. A man with a beard asked me when the next bus is coming, and Iran still exists. From the Terrorism Alert Desk in Washington, I am just about done with this shit. And look, there is no doubt that the Terror Alert Desk has also featured some truly terrifying stories.
ISIS has carried out a gruesome public execution in Iraq. They sliced 9 teens in half with a chainsaw.
Now that caught our attention because it feels like the sort of thing we'd have seen reported elsewhere. So we tried to track down that story, and it originated with an anonymously sourced report on something called Iraqi News. We weren't able to find any outlet that had independently verified it, and even when it was picked up by British tabloids and Breitbart, they were careful to distance themselves with language like, it has been claimed and reportedly. And I did not know it was possible to dip beneath the journalistic standards of Breitbart. That's like being too bad a chef to work at a carnival food cart. Look, your fried ham is unimaginative and bland, and we cannot have that. We're Uncle Sticky's discount ham wagon. But they reported it like it was a fact. And what was perhaps even weirder about that chainsaw segment was the story that closed it out.
And mayors in 22 French towns are ignoring a high court's ruling that says banning burkinis is illegal. More than 30 towns initially outlawed the swimwear worn mostly by Muslim women. From the Terrorism Alert Desk, I'm Michelle Marsh.
What the fuck? That is not about terrorism, it's just about Muslims. By that definition, terrorism is anything a Muslim does. Tonight, Mahershala Ali on the cover of GQ, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar sneezed in an airport, and happy birthday to Fareed Zakaria. This has been your Terrorism Alert Desk. Now, to their credit, in the face of all of this, some Sinclair stations are fighting back against their parent company. For instance, at their station in Seattle, Como has engaged in clever acts of rebellion, like airing must-runs at times of low viewership. In fact, their only airing of the story about the New Hampshire ISIS flag was at 4:54 a.m. So it was basically only seen by people in hospital waiting rooms, customers at 24-hour 7-Elevens, and Craig. Just go to bed, Craig. Get your shit together and go to bed. But the truth is, if you work at a Sinclair station, there is only so much that you can do. And should this Tribune acquisition go through, there are going to be even more good journalists having to see their hard work placed alongside terror desk nonsense. Just as there'll be even more unsuspecting audience members who'll be getting a heaping dose of Sinclair's content, possibly without realizing it. So you should find out who owns your local stations and bear that in mind as you watch. And for any Tribune station that could soon be taken over, we've produced a little video so you can alert your viewers. Don't think of it as a must run. Think of it more as a probably should run. Take a look.
Hello, I'm Steve Shripper from The Sopranos, and I'm probably not the last guy with an accent, wearing a cheap tie, standing in front of a green screen that you're going to see on this channel. And I'll tell you why. This station could soon be owned by Sinclair Broadcast Group, so you might see this fucking guy, with this fucking logo, or this fucking desk. And if you do, just know that wasn't produced by this station, because the people at this station know that local news should never be about cheap scaremongering or advancing a political agenda. It should only be about weather, sports, high-team investigations, and human interest stories featuring cute animals, like this pot-bellied pig. Look at this little guy. He's called Pork Chop. Anyway, I'm Steve Sharippa telling you, if this becomes a Sinclair station, good luck with that shit.
Moving on. Before we go tonight, I would like to talk about America's presidents, the only group of individuals that we know for sure at some point masturbated in the White House. Oh, please, you think McKinley didn't? Come on, grow up, he's doing it in that photo. Listen, with all the horrors of our current presidents, it can sometimes help to get some historical perspective, to look at all the people who preceded him. Although a few months ago, one place where you might be able to do that was forced to say goodbye.
After nearly 60 years of operation, the Hall of Presidents and First Ladies Wax Museum in Gettysburg is shutting down.
Even though the museum will be no more, you have an opportunity to own a piece of American history.
It's something that doesn't come up every day in an auction, for sure.
Should be a very interesting auction, and we hope lots of people come.
Yeah, so do I. I hope that too, because these wax presidents deserve a good home. No one wants to see Benjamin Harrison having to model culottes at Forever 21. And here's the thing. People did come. Some apparently paid thousands of dollars to own a wax president, and it later turned out there were some notable buyers among them.
We got our very own life-size wax president. That is President Eisenhower.
Is it? Is it, though? Because to me, it looks like you may have just bought a wax sculpture of Bill O'Reilly covering his erection with a magazine. But it wasn't just Maddow. Stephen Colbert got one too.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for your Late Show president, Zachary Taylor.
Well, congratulations, Stephen. Although it is worth pointing out that Zachary Taylor died of a stomach bug 16 months into office, so he's really less of a president and more a guy named Zach who shit his brains out in the West Wing men's room. Now, Colbert actually wanted Martin Van Buren, but unbeknownst to him, and this is true, Jon Stewart bought that one. Presumably, to add to his ever-expanding mannequin sex dungeon, that's the only rational explanation. I know what you're thinking. Spending good money on a poorly made wax figure of a former president sounds pretty stupid, right? Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And that is why I am proud to say we didn't go down there and buy one of them. We bought 5 of them. 5. Why 5? Because we are 5 times stupider than any other TV show. That's fucking why. And the reason we've been sitting on this for so long is because we've been very busy constructing a home for our horrifying new friends. In fact, tonight, I'd like to present to you the Last Week Tonight Hall of Dubiously Lifelike Wax Commanders-in-Chief. The whole gang is here. First, there is Richard Nixon. He cost us $1,900 and he looks like a store-brand Mitt Romney. Next, there's Bill Clinton, or to be more accurate, John Travolta in primary colours as Bill Clinton. Then there's Jimmy Carter, looking like the before photo for a jaundice medication. And William Henry Harrison, who died of pneumonia 31 days into office, and this is probably exactly what he looked like when he did. And lastly, there is Warren G. fucking Harding. And you know what? You know what? This one is actually my favourite, because we've talked a lot about Harding on this programme before. He was our nation's 29th president, and his administration was nearly brought down by the Teapot Dome scandal. But he's perhaps most famous for his sexual exploits.
After Warren Harding died in 1923, Nan Britton wrote a book claiming she'd been his mistress. They'd made love in a White House closet, and he'd fathered her daughter, Elizabeth.
Oh, Warren, knocking up your friend's daughter in a White House fuck cupboard, you waxy little pervert. But the fact is, Harding had an incredible life story. And it's a shame that someone hasn't already made a major motion picture of it. The problem is, who would do it? It would have to be someone with way too much time on their hands, way too many resources, and unfettered access to a life-size wax replica of former President Warren G. Harding. If only that person existed, the movie they'd make might look a little like this.
He came from humble roots to rule a nation.
President Warren G. Harding as I live and breathe. Let's show these fancy Washington folk what an Ohio boy can do.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
But behind the public face lived a man of dark ambition.
Gentlemen, raise him up to the 29th President of these United States, and to our very good fortune.
Driven by hidden passions beyond his control and beyond the realm of virtue.
Mr. Harding, I do believe you're flirting with me.
Consumed by a lust that would not weaken.
Take me, Warren.
His name was synonymous with grace and dignity.
President?
Doomed to pay the price of power.
Mr. President, I must ask you again to sign an executive order about this Teapot Dome matter. You will sign this document.
Torn between duty and desire.
I demand to see my Warren.
Young lady, you're in no position to demand anything.
How dare you speak to me this way?
You look me in the eye and tell me she means nothing to you. Don't you turn your back on me, Warren.
Who risked all he held dear.
If you don't contain the situation, this whole administration is going down. Do you hear me? We will all be finished. Sir.
Is that all I am to you, a plaything? I'm not your whore!
Why must my greatest love also be my greatest trial?
The New York Times calls it a movie. The LA Times raves there are 4 Oscar nominees in it. Seriously. And World of Wax Monthly hails Harding as a triumph. Campbell Scott, Anna Kendrick, Michael McKean, James Cromwell, and Laura fucking Linney.
You are a great man, Warren, but heed my warning. Even great men may be corrupted. So, yeah.
Harding.
Did you fall?
Coming soon.
Just think, we don't even know what we're doing with the other 4 yet. That's our show. We'll be off for the next few weeks. We'll be back on July 30th. Good night.